3 Christmases on a row. I got my period on Christmas Day and I knew it was coming.
How can people navigate that tricky world of announcements over Christmas?
I've probably had more than my fair share of people asking me, where are the babies?
I said, oh God, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that. I did mean that. I was really upset.
I think it's really natural to have that fantasy that this year we'll know that we're pregnant. We might even be able to buy a bauble and pop it on the tree. I think it can be a really triggering time of year.
It's a lot. It's a lot. Before we get started, if I could just ask you a very quick favour, wherever you're watching or listening, if you could press follow or subscribe, that would be amazing. It makes a huge difference and will really help me get the message out to more women who really need it. Thank you so much and enjoy the episode. Hello and welcome to this episode of Too Much Information. We are fast approaching December, cannot quite believe it. And by the time this episode goes out, I think it actually will be December, which means Christmas is coming. Mariah Carey has thawed. I think Christmas and big periods of celebration and times where you're told that you need to be joyful can often conjure up and trigger a lot of complicated emotions anyway. And I think that has not ever been truer for me personally than going into my first Christmas on a relatively lengthy so far fertility journey. I tested the water with this theory a few weeks ago on my Instagram, and I was shocked but not surprised by the flood of messages and comments that I had in from people who are also trying to conceive and on a fertility journey. Here to shed some light and talk a bit about their personal experience going through multiple Christmases of trying to conceive. I'm so delighted to welcome back Helen Davenport-Peace. Helen, thank you so much for coming back onto the podcast.
It's so good to be back. For anyone that's TTC, there's going to be a lot of kind of universality of whether you celebrate Christmas, whether you don't, like this coming to the end of the year. It's going to amplify where we thought we might be, where we hoped we might be. We know what we've travelled through in a year as well. So I think there's a little bit of a taking stock and a lot of stuff that people can't see. And then if you add in that mix of social stuff happening everywhere, work dues, family that we might not have seen in ages, friends coming together, and I think that can be really tough.
And I think you're completely right that the reason that Christmas in particular is more significant than maybe other milestones is that it is at the end of the year. The amount of people who buy into this narrative that we particularly get on social media around, I really wanted to get pregnant in 2025, or I really want a 2026 baby. So it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, because I think we can start to feel like we're falling behind, particularly when we come together with family where people might be pregnant, people might be bringing small children or babies, and people are moving forward in a kind of trajectory that is taking them somewhere we want to go, and yet we are kind of in this static place. I think it can be really confronting situations to be in. So I'm hoping to talk us together this morning about the kind of things that people might put in place, how some thinking about some of those things in advance might actually serve people really well, so that we're not blindsided by comments or situations that we hadn't really thought about.
Before we get started though, Helen, would you like to just quickly reintroduce yourself?
Yes, it's been a little while, hasn't it? I had a bit of a career transition in my 40s around lockdown, where I moved from I was a lecturer and a yoga teacher kind of on the side, fertility yoga teacher. And I transitioned into doing that as my full-time job, together with being a fertility doula. So I support people going through the trials and tribulations of TTC, really, who are just feeling maybe overwhelmed, stressed, really looking at nervous system and looking at that happening for them. And I'm currently in the process of training to be a psychotherapist, where fertility will be my specialism. So lots of kind of fingers and lots of pies, but that's me, and I'm in Manchester. So we're both based in Manchester, aren't we?
Yeah.
I think the body of work that I have on Instagram in most of the years that I've been there is talking about the things that people say, actually. I think the things that people say and the things we wish they'd said, if I had to
Yeah.
kind of clarify it. But also, I want that space to be a really supportive place for anyone trying to conceive, to feel seen and to feel heard. That's a good place to find me on Instagram.
And I can attest it is a very fantastic channel filled with actually really useful and incredibly relatable content. So thank you for that. I thought we might start by talking a little bit about Christmas in general. Are you a Christmas and a holiday season person?
Well, no. So is this where my little Grinch comes out? I've never really loved it because I really am a summer person. My mum loves Christmas. My family love Christmas, and I love that for them. And I love my family Christmas. It's not my season of choice, but there's bits that I love about it. But this is where it gets a little bit sad. My dad died at Christmas 2 years ago. Now it's coming up to
Oh, I'm so
all over.
sorry.
We were kind of in hospice, so Christmas has now got a bit of another flavour, and last year Christmas was miserable. But this year I've made a bit of a redecision of like, come on, let's put the Grinch suit down,
Yeah.
let's find things to enjoy. And definitely when I was trying to conceive, I
Yeah.
found some aspects of Christmas really hard going. And I think it was the thing about I'm not where I want to be. So Christmas can be hard in just so many ways. It's hard for people who've had a loss. It's hard. And yet we're expected for it to be amazing, most wonderful time of the year. And I think for a lot of people, it's probably not,
Yeah.
actually.
I feel very privileged genuinely that I do love Christmas, but I love it for getting together with family first and foremost. That's what I think about it as, and having a bit of time off, having time to kind of decompress. I think often I'm off my phone, and actually this will be the first year that I've ever had any more reason than sort of telling my 9 followers on my personal account what I'm doing to be on my phone. So I'm going to try and make a conscious decision to keep doing that because I think it's quite a lovely opportunity to reset. Our Christmas is a quiet one this year. We flip flop. So last year, 25 of my extended family all got together, including my pregnant cousin, including all of the little babies. And this time last year, my headspace was very different. And I'm not saying that I won't miss that because I will. But there is definitely a part of me that is feeling quite grateful that this year we're actually just my husband, his mum and dad, his 3 siblings, and that's it. That's kind of exactly what I fancy this year. I need to caveat to mum, I will really miss you at Christmas, don't worry.
But of course, um, I'm quite selfish. I always end up going to my mum's.
That's fine.
I think when we go back to the family home, which I know not everybody does, or we go into a relative's house that we've known for since we were a child, it's like stepping back onto a stage where everyone's got their script, and
Mhm.
quite often people are expecting that there's going to be something in the plot that
Oh, yes.
changes. Um, as much as they can be so lovely when you are trying to conceive, you might not have told anybody yet. So you're
Mm.
walking into this kind of, yeah, it's like a play and things are going to play out. And I think we can kind of take some time to think about how we might want to play our role.
I
Yeah.
mean, I sort of think before we go into this actually, Helen, it would be useful to talk about what you remember of your trying Christmases, just to set the tone.
So I was an oversharer and probably still am. And I think I would think if someone asked me that, I owed them something. I was in that world for 5 years. By year 5, people didn't get a lot. I think in year 1, they probably got an awful lot more than I wish that I'd shared.
Yeah.
But yeah, Christmas to me, I remember every Christmas that I was trying to get pregnant. We have fairly small gatherings, and people knew that we were trying to get pregnant. And also, not I didn't used to spend my Christmas day usually with children, so I was kind of buffered and protected. One of the most difficult things to me is a bit unusual. Is I went to a couple of weddings around Christmas, and the
Oh,
combination of the wedding and the Christmas,
wow.
that was
Yeah.
the questions coming at me like missiles, and also work dues people have had a little bit more to drink. They might have been thinking things. Me and my husband worked together. We got married while we worked together. So all our colleagues had this kind of expectation. And it's like, yeah, people lost their inhibition and would ask a lot of questions then.
Wow. That must have been tricky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've probably had more than my fair share of people asking me, where are the babies? So I've had time to hone what I say in response to that.
I'd love to hear about that. So, first of all, what would be your dream response?
You might not want to be hyper boundaries, but you might want to think about before you actually walk into a situation, who do you want to know? Because sometimes, particularly if we've had a glass or two of wine or just that moment hits you don't owe anybody your story. And I think sometimes we can feel like, well, you've asked, so I'm going to tell you. So thinking about who you might want to share that with and who you don't, even writing it down actually can be quite useful. And take a pause. When people ask you that question, it's really okay. Just take a moment, think, do I want to share all of this with you? Am I going to go home tonight and wish that I hadn't? And you're a trustworthy person. And I wish I had done that because I was very, very open about our journey with just about everyone that came my way. I
Mm.
think I was seeking reassurance through oversharing, actually, trying to find other people that might have had that kind of experience. But I look back and think it probably wasn't that helpful. I think when those questions come, if you have prepared a stock bank of answers, it can be quite helpful. So you can kind of say, that's really complicated for us, but we're just focusing on taking care of ourselves. So you're kind of drawing the boundary around you really gently. It could be,
Mm.
that's a story for another day. You can make it really gentle and then redirect and reflect. So then ask them something about themselves so that you're moving out of that conversation quite quickly. And most
Yeah.
people will get you then that this is not going to be something that you want to really elaborate on. Some people won't. And that's when you might need to kind of bring in the kind of, I'd really rather not discuss that. That's something that we're keeping private at the moment. It's kind of going up the scale of, I've tried something gentle, you're still asking me, I'm going to be a little bit more direct. Something that I borrowed from a colleague actually was, that's a very personal question. Now that's very direct and it's one to use in the right situation, but it's
Yeah.
actually educative because it's telling somebody that they stepped over a boundary that was a little bit intrusive, because it's not a question that anyone should ever be asking anybody really that they're not really, really close to.
Yeah.
And yet people will. It's potent, it's a bit spicy, but I think that one's been quite helpful for me sometimes. So it's a choice. I think it's just remembering that you don't have to. You can kind of draw up your drawbridge and decide what it is that you want to share.
I really like that advice.
Have you thought about that very much, about what it is that you might say?
I think it's slightly different for me because I've been very open, rightly or wrongly, but also most of my friends and family know that I've started a podcast and therefore have listened or have followed me on Instagram and have seen me speak at length about trying to conceive. A lot of people say, "Oh, you're so brave for saying that," and I really appreciate that. But it's a form of self-preservation for me. Even before I launched this podcast, I was very open about my husband and I trying to conceive because my thought process was that by getting it out in the open, people wouldn't be insensitive and
Mm.
would know maybe not to ask or to ask in a really kind, sensitive way, which often people do. And I don't think I regret that. The only thing I would say is that it then does mean that some people who I know really, really care, I think feel slightly nervous about talking to you about it.
Oh, okay.
And actually, particularly when you're spending quite intimate time with friends and with family, and it's an emotional, reflective time of year, I don't want people to feel scared about asking the right questions, which for me are things like how are you feeling? And often people who know me really well will say, you don't have to say anything, but I want you to know that I'm here and I'm checking in. So if you want to talk about it, I'd love to know how you're finding everything. So really, I think openness has been helpful for me, but in a way that sort of deflects most of the bad questions, but maybe some of the good questions as well, I would say.
And I think it's really can be really a moment of intimacy, can't it? That you
Yep.
know that you're in a safe space with people that know, and that therefore that can be protective in terms of people saying things. And listeners, there'll be a spectrum of people who don't want anyone to know at all. And there will be people that are sharing. And you're quite right. If you've got your podcast out there, you've got your reels that are fantastic,
Oh,
but it
thank
gives
you.
people a real kind of look through into what's happening.
Yeah.
I think some of the most damaging comments for me actually didn't come from friends and family because they knew that I wanted one. So
Mm,
it was from people that didn't really know me. So in that wedding situation, I remember someone I'd never met before who vaguely knew my partner waltzing up to us and saying, "Come on then, TikTok, you two." And I just thought, ouch, like I just had
oh
an
yeah.
unsuccessful round of IVF that winter. And it was like we were just like wasting our time and that we were going to miss the boat. And it was just this comment that came from absolutely nowhere. And I think sometimes what we do in those moments is we don't say anything at all because
Yeah.
our brain can't think. It's gone into a kind of freeze mode because we've been hurt. And then we ruminate on it later. So what would I have said to him now? I might have said that's a really personal thing to have said to me. I think he deserved to know that that wasn't an okay question to go or an okay thing to go around saying. But
Yeah.
I didn't speak, and I think that's really quite a common response.
I I can relate to that so much. Just have a baby.
I don't think most of it comes from a malicious place at
No, I
all.
don't think it does.
It's careless, I think. It's a very deeply private thing, isn't it, trying to have a baby? So it kind of blows my mind sometimes. People think they can just ask whatever they like about it. Um, but yeah, it can be a real melting pot, I think.
Totally.
The family, the work, the friendship dues at Christmas can bring a lot of it to the surface.
I think on that topic as well, when I went to a wedding about a month ago, I had made a conscious decision that this was going to be a fun day. I was going to have a few drinks. I was not going to be thinking or talking about fertility. I was going to be there celebrating my best friend. And one of my friends after the reception was like, by the way, I've seen your Instagrams. I kind of knew that you were going through something, but I don't think I realized how much. So I hope you're okay if you want to talk about it. And I said, thank you so much. That is really kind of you. I would like to talk about it with you. That would be great, but not today. Let's just have fun today.
Yeah.
And that felt really empowering for me. And I think maybe that's something that I would like to bring through to the festive season as well, to almost have those days where you're like, I don't want to think about this today. And I don't want to talk about this today.
And how lovely of your friend to say that. Sometimes I actually send out a WhatsApp poll to my friends if they're in need of, like, what is it you need from me? Do you need a care package? Do you need a voice note? What is it you need? And then your people will respond, and then so many people tell us, and not just with TTC, is it? It's with other difficult times in
Oh,
your life.
yeah.
If you need me, I'm here. It's like, well, probably the chances of me picking up the phone and saying I need you are probably really small. So tell me, give me some things that might actually be practical and helpful to me.
It's brilliant. And I'm going to use that today on a friend. Can we talk a bit about family dynamics? So, one of our listeners said, my sister in law's due date is December the 26th. I'm terrified the baby will come while we're at our in laws because it will be their first grandchild. They'll be over the moon and they don't know about our fertility journey. I'm already practicing my reaction so I can at least look happy and not entirely broken if we get the news with them. Could you share some tips for what to do with baby is here or we're pregnant news over Christmas? And this seems like an anxiety that so many people have. I've checked my natural cycles app, and if we get pregnant this cycle, I could do that dream announcement over Christmas. And wouldn't that be lovely? I think there are a lot of people who seem to save them up. So how can people navigate that tricky world of announcements or baby arrivals over Christmas?
Well, it's a great big magnifying glass over all of it, isn't it? When we're all kind of together and we're supposed to be this joyful period. I think it's really natural to have that kind of fantasy that this year we'll know that we're pregnant. We might be able to tell people. We might even be able to buy a bauble and pop it on the tree. So
Mm,
we're already walking into this situation with anticipatory grief, I think, that is invisible to most people. So you're walking in with all of your kind of emotional You're trying to contain it. When you're then and I think we do get a little bit kind of hyper focused on who might announce. Like we do a lot of detective work, don't we? Of like who in the family could potentially, or on my Instagram feed, be the person.
So much detective work.
So we're human, nosy
Yeah.
storytellers, and we want to work it out. We want to protect ourselves from a potential blow that might hurt. I feel really a kind of acute empathy for the person who wrote that comment. You have every right to feel every shade of emotion
Yeah.
that comes at that time. There is a big narrative, particularly on social media, and it's there's an etiquette to this narrative that we're going to be happy for someone else and sad for us. We might not feel much happiness actually, and there's not a lot about that. We might feel a whole mix of jealousy, sadness, grief that kind of completely washes over us before we can even tap into joy and happiness, which leaves us feeling a bit ashamed if we don't really genuinely feel happy for somebody. And I think we have to then think, how am I going to look after myself through this? You know, if you are in a partnership, how can you decide beforehand what the things are that you're going to put in place, whether that's having to be around somebody that's pregnant, whether that's having to be around a little baby, whether it's the comments.
Yeah.
There is, particularly if you're away from home as well, I think it magnifies it a little bit even more because you're not around your safe space. I had a secret code with my husband that if I squeezed his hand really hard, it meant that I needed to get out. Similarly for him, he didn't ever do it. It was always me. I needed a break. So what could that look like in the scenario that you're in? Is that you go for a little drive because you forgot something from the shops? Is it that you need a nap, you know? Is it that you are going to go for a bit of fresh air because you've got a really bad headache? I think sometimes taking yourself away from the situation and having some time to actually regulate and have a bit of a come together, you know, and talk it through. Have a little cry if you need to. There's absolutely nothing wrong with crying in front of people either. That is fine. But sometimes we need to just step out. It's not easy. It's not, especially Christmas Day, it's not always that easy to escape. Um, but it might just be something that you can do together that might be something helpful. The other thing in terms of looking after yourself, and I speak to this really personally because for 3 Christmases on a row, I got my period on Christmas Day and I knew it was coming. Like I hoped it wouldn't. I'd be gearing up thinking maybe this will be the Christmas where I get to kind of say, hey, it's a pregnancy test and it's positive. What could you do that's going to be something that is really like regulating to your nervous system? What could you take from home if you're staying away? Could you take a favourite blanket, hot water bottle? Maybe you light a nice candle if that's appropriate. Have you got like a nice scent or essential oil or something, a favourite book, playlist that you can pop on and switch the world off? Like making your little mini sanctuary, particularly if you're staying in someone's house that you know, relatives that you don't normally stay with or people that you don't know. How can you make wherever you're sleeping into like somewhere where you can also be your little escape hatch so that you can take some time to just think things through, breathe, let things settle and close the door on it a little bit. I do think that's really important.
I think that's brilliant advice. Really, really good advice because you're right that actually sometimes all you want is to be at home in your own bed. I love a cry. I actually love a solo cry as well. Highly recommend a shower cry. Very happy to cry in front of other people, but sometimes you just need to get it out on your own.
But I've actually got like a playlist that's kind of like tear jerking, like
I have a playlist.
fun, have a
Yeah.
cry, I think can be quite cathartic.
And I often have a chat with myself as well. I'll go for a walk outside on my own, could be 5 minutes, could be half an hour or longer, and just actually have a like vocal chat with myself. Normally try and do that somewhere that isn't my local park because I think people might think I was a bit weird. But it does help.
And someone says something that's really awful and you really don't want to cry. The dinner's about to come and be served on the table and you just feel wretched because someone's just announced a pregnancy. A really nice thing to do is put your arms around yourself, like you're giving a nice. You can have them underneath. No one can really see it. Just looks like you're folding your arms. But getting yourself into a bit of a physical, contained place can actually tell the body that you're safe and just give yourself a little bit of a moment.
Yeah. What about people who actually have new family members there at Christmas? Do you have any advice around that? And is that something that you have experience of?
Very much so, because like I was the last, got quite a big family, and I was the last person in my family to have a baby. I had my baby at 38. My brother had children before me. One before we were trying, and I loved that because I was just wanting to be an auntie. And then the second one we were trying, and that was more complicated. So I have been in that situation. That wanting to be first is a real kind of primal thing, I think, and we have to kind of sit with it and grieve that. I think there is a grieving to be done there, that you weren't the person that brought the first, grandchild into the house, for example. And it's really tough because you're basically watching a movie of what you want playing out for somebody else, while
Yeah.
you are therefore also supposed to perform this kind of gracious, welcoming, happy, but actually you're allowed to be gutted, disappointed, and you're allowed to grieve what you wanted to be yours. And that's not to say that, down the line, you might be like me and bringing the last baby in, and that was quite a celebration.
Yeah.
I mean, I know some people call them ugly feelings. I refuse to do that, because I think all feelings are necessary. It's in feeling those feelings that we're actually able to move through the grief of what's happened. And if we refuse to feel them, that kind of dissociation from our feelings kind of rupture up somewhere else,
Mm.
So I think letting yourself feel it is really important.
Yeah. I've spoken a lot about this idea of these self-imposed milestones, and I think that is one of them. I'm the older sibling. I'm an older sister of one sister in my family. On my husband's side of the family, we're the first married. I would be absolutely devastated if someone else was the first child to have the baby on either
Mm.
sides. But that's
Yeah.
self-imposed. So this is completely in my head. We're on our own timeline. It doesn't change anything.
Why wouldn't you, as firstborn child who's got married first, expect as part of your birthright that you are going to
Yeah,
have the baby
yeah.
first? I'm going to go a bit broader than that. Anything that anybody trying to conceive, listening to this, has ever thought that
Mm.
might feel really quite dark, actually,
Yeah,
most of us have thought it as well. We just
completely
want
agree.
a platform to be able to say, I thought this, actually, because it would feel very, very vulnerable and exposing.
I put across that I'm very open and honest on my Instagram. There's a whole side that you're not seeing, and that actually some people who've commented, I've then had private conversations with them and probably revealed my truest feelings in that situation. It can be pretty dark. Sometimes I hope that they don't screenshot that and put that out into the ether, because I don't think I'd be particularly proud of saying that. But every single time I have divulged some darker part of my emotions, they've come back and said, "Yep, I've thought the same thing."
It's a shame in a way, because that would actually probably be quite comforting for a lot of us to know that we've all gone into those dark places of.
I said to one of my friends the day before she got a positive pregnancy test, we were both saying that our periods were due in the next 2 days. I so distinctly remember kind of jokingly saying, "Oh, I'd be absolutely devastated if you got a positive pregnancy test." And she looked really taken aback. And I said, "Oh God, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that. I did mean that." And I was. And I was still happy for her. And I am so happy for her now. But I was really upset. I sobbed. And it was kind of like a word vomit that I felt I was safe to say, because she'd only been trying for 2 months. And in my head, that's not possible, because that's just so not my experience.
Oh, it's really hard. Like my brother, I'm going to share this because I know that he won't in a million years listen to it. And if he does, then I'll have to just suck it up. My brother conceived his second child, was in an accident, and it wasn't planned. And in his words, he said, "I'm not sure there was even penetrative sex." I'd been trying for quite a while at that point, and it blew my mind. It's like, gosh, how is this happening? How are you getting the pregnancy when it
Yeah.
was untimed, unplanned, actually too short? They didn't want a gap that little. I reeled from that because I didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
So I think it's good that we have this platform where we can say some of these things, and that maybe
I
people
think
can
so
feel
too.
validated in their own emotions and feelings too.
Yeah. So a big takeaway from that, I think, is just whatever thought you thought, someone else and many other women will have thought it as well. And it's okay. Can we talk a bit about having fun over Christmas? Can we talk a bit about alcohol
Oh yeah.
and overindulging. It's a time of eating, drinking, and being merry, isn't it? Somebody messaged saying, I want to enjoy Christmas, but I also know I need to be looking after myself. Let's take the practical side out of this, because actually we are all told a lot what we should and shouldn't be doing. And one of the next episodes we're going to be doing is going to be on nutrition and alcohol and trying to conceive. So there's a lot of information out there. How can people tactically decline alcohol at this time of year without prompting unwanted conversations?
Yeah, it's a bit of a trap, isn't it, that I'm not
Mm.
drinking. I actually do think, and people might disagree with me, 2025 it's a bit easier than say 10 years ago.
Yeah, I agree.
That because I think it's becoming more of socially normative in a
Yeah,
lot of places.
so
Probably
true.
not, but probably not for everybody's family. But I do think we can rock up with our own non-alcoholic beverages and say, we've decided we haven't been drinking since October, actually. I feel amazing,
Yeah.
which might work for some people. Wouldn't have worked in my family because my family have rituals, On Christmas Eve, we had Manhattans that my dad would make, and then we'd have a really nice, expensive bottle of white wine that my brother had sent us.
Yeah.
So for me to opt out of that, it would have looked really sus, actually, no matter what I said. So I think there's various things that we can say. So we can lean into people we don't know so well and we want to escape it. I kind of would go with that kind of, I'm just not drinking, or I'm on a bit of a health kick. You can get a bit more kind of covert and have alcoholic looking drinks. A really good one for me, which is probably a bit going to blindside people. If I said I had cystitis, no one asked any questions. So
Yeah.
I found that was quite useful sometimes in kind of friendship. We'd all going to the pub, because the trouble is when you say you're not drinking, no matter what you'd pick, you then can end up on the next tier of questions, which is like, oh, why not? Are you pregnant? Have you got something to say? So you've instantly then
That's it.
fallen into the nosy question trap. So it's a really tricky one to navigate. Another thing that's a really practical thing to do is tell people in advance, like, I'm not drinking in December. I'm having 3 months off because
Yeah.
I've been drinking. I don't know. We want to take care of ourselves. We're really focusing on our well-being at the moment. So sometimes when we rock up and everyone's bought the alcohol and then you turn up and you're the not drinker, I think sometimes giving people a heads up in advance could be quite helpful as well.
And you don't want to feel like the party pooper as well. I do like a drink, but I increasingly find that it doesn't like me. And for that reason, I've been more conscious about the nights that I am drinking and those that I'm not. I agree with you that I think giving people a heads up in advance is quite helpful. When it comes to trying to conceive, I take the honesty as the best policy route, and that's what works for me. So you'll quite often hear me say, I'm not drinking, but I'm not pregnant. And I just say it like that. It's because for me, the worst response that I could get would be someone going, oh, is there the pitter patter of tiny feet? I would hate that. I would find it really upsetting. So that's my way of being like, okay, conversation closed now, bye. I think it goes back to your point earlier about the fact that we sometimes innately want to overshare, but actually you don't owe that to anyone.
And then it is okay to have a drink as well. I do want to say that, I think we can sometimes fall into this loop of thinking that everything we do is impacting our chances, and it's a much more broader brushstroke than that, I think.
Yeah.
Because in that social setting, for example, that I mentioned, where we've got this really expensive, lovely bottle of white wine that we're going to share at a Christmas meal, then I think it's kind of a bit ludicrous actually to think, well, I'm not going to have even like a half glass of it. So you can be kind on yourself. I think not enough is talked about actually, that having that glass of white wine for me was oxytocin raising, because it was with my family doing something that we'd always done, and it was a special family moment that was probably really quite good for my body in ways that no one
Yeah.
really talks, because we're so used to focusing on, well, it could be bad for your liver and it could be a hormone disruptor and all this kind of stuff. But what about the good stuff that glass of wine did for me? That was
Absolutely.
memories
And
now that I won't ever have again. Like, I'm so glad that I did. So I think it's balance, isn't it?
it is. And it is a holiday. And you don't need to feel the pressure to do it a certain way. And actually, there have been other people who have said, we're skipping Christmas this year. We're just doing our own thing. That is absolutely fine. I think that's so admirable. and the right thing for you and your family if that's what you want to do. But if you want to go in and have a fun Christmas and try and make the most of it and give a big fuck you to your period that's arrived on Christmas Eve, have the glass of wine or two or five and just enjoy it, because one day is not going to make a difference, she says, with no scientific or clinical credentials whatsoever.
We get so hard on ourselves. I do wonder, like, if you suddenly go into a really quite punitive way of feeding and nurturing your body, I think sometimes the nervous system's like, what the fuck? And that's
Yeah.
not me saying it gets in the way of you getting pregnant, but in terms of the way we feel, probably not that lovely. So yeah, I think this is a nice time to think, what are my delicious, what are my decadent, delicious things going to be? And and I'm going to have this, and this is what I want. I think it's really important.
I think that gives me permission to have all the mince pies.
They're a fruit.
Exactly. I think we've covered a lot. The only other thing that we haven't done in detail or specifically would be around the 2-week wait.
Oh, yes. That's tough.
Yeah,
That's really tough. It's always tough.
it's
Yeah.
always tough.
Those last few days of the 2-week wait, and you're just about to descend on your partner's family and on Great Mildred, and
Hell,
you're, "Oh, my boob's sore, probably shouldn't be drinking." Your emotions are heightened, as we said before, hoping that maybe it's a Christmas Day pregnancy test. Oh my gosh, it's a lot. So all of those things of looking after yourself are gonna be really, really important.
yeah.
And it's okay, it's okay to find that hard, because it is.
I do feel that this would be the month where I would be taking that advice of not testing early,
Mm.
because as much of a blow as getting your period is, I think that constant hope and disappointment and hope and disappointment and analyzing whether there's a line or whether it's a watermark is just, it's so rubbish.
Sure.
I've totally fallen off the wagon. I did a good 3 months where I wasn't early testing, and then the last 2 months I have both times, and it's just been crap. So I would say for anyone who is in the 2-week wait over Christmas, if you're going away, don't bring the test with you. Try and avoid it, because it just, in my experience, it does make it worse.
And testing over Christmas, wow, what a minefield. I've
Yeah.
been there so many times. I've done the not testing, I've done the early testing. I've sat and drawn a line on with a pink pen just to see what one looks like. So these are the kind of things that people do, but I think it's really, really
It's
hard, and I
okay.
think that's really good advice. I think there's just a couple of other things that I want to say is, like, I think for some people that are listening to this, they will have experienced loss this year.
Yeah.
So they are heading into this period where there was a story that could have been unfolding that is now not unfolding. And I just want to say, please just look after yourself so gently and so carefully. And maybe actually this is a time for you to make this time really your own. Like, what might be something that you could honor that experience with, whether it is going on a little walk or planting a tree, or what is it you want to do to honor that kind of experience, lighting a candle and having your quiet moment, because I think those two
Mm.
things really butt up. And I know that someone had asked me about that,
Yeah.
because you were imagining something very different that you didn't get. And for a lot of people that you're probably seeing over that time, they have no idea that that's even happened to you. So it's really is a time to think about nourishing yourself in all the ways possible that you
Yeah.
can.
I think that's so beautiful and so important. And thank you for making sure that we talk about that too, because you're right. We've had quite a few messages actually from people who experienced miscarriage, whether that's early or, one, I think it was 20, their daughter was born at 22 weeks. I mean, that is devastating. And what I would say is that whether you're religious or not, this is a time of year that it can feel quite spiritual. And whether you're celebrating Christmas or not, I think it is a time to be reflective on the year, not to get together with family and just to do exactly your own thing.
Mm.
I'm not religious, but I do actually find some comfort in going to a carol concert, surrounding myself with people. If I go into a beautiful building and there's an opportunity to light a candle or make a donation in memory of someone, this is a time of year where I will try and do that, and I'll remember people that I've lost and allow myself just a moment to talk with them or say what I need to say to myself or to them. And that is really comforting. And I've not experienced pregnancy loss, but that might be a comfort to people as well, just in whatever way is right for you.
Yeah. There is a big lack of ritual in our culture now.
Yeah.
That historically there would have been more things, and a lot of that would have been religious. I'm not religious either, but there is this kind of human need, I think, to sense, make, and process. And we don't always know how on earth we're supposed to do that. Like this kind of healing narrative, what does that actually mean? But I think finding some things like that that are meaningful to you, whatever they might be, um, can be really important.
Yeah. And I think just knowing you're not alone, whatever stage you're at, there will be many people out there who are going through exactly the same as you. I often feel this when I get messages from people, but I had one last week that really hit differently. A woman said, when I started this journey almost 9 months ago, I was convinced I'd be pregnant by the time Christmas came around because it felt so far away. And now it's almost here and I'm not. And it was kind of like she'd taken those words out of my brain.
Yeah.
And I remember having a conversation with my brother-in-law, probably January, February this year, just as we were starting. And I said, oh, well, it's probably going to be a bit of a quiet Christmas anyway, because I'll probably be pregnant. And God, do I regret saying those words out loud now, because kind of makes it hurt more.
Yeah. And we can be really mean on our past self, because why wouldn't you have thought that? That's the story that we're told.
Helen, my final question to you would be, if somebody is listening who's not trying to conceive, what would be your biggest piece of advice to them if they are spending Christmas with somebody who is?
If you're spending some time with someone that has been trying for a long time, I think the better route for me would be to name it in a really compassionate way. Like, I've been thinking about you, and this time of year, knowing that you've been on your journey is probably really tough, and that's really hard. And give them a massive hug. I remember someone saying, after I had it was a chemical pregnancy. I don't really like that term. Someone at work I'm just going to give you a massive hug. And she hugged me for a really long time. And just being in that long hug, I started to cry because I just thought she knew what had happened. She didn't really say very much. She didn't ask any questions or probe or try and offer out any advice or any of that stuff. She just gave me a massive hug. And I will never forget that. It was just what I needed at the time. So that would be what I would say is don't shy away from it or push it under the rug, because it's there. But it's about just being present and not trying to fix it, because you can't.
And give them a big hug. And please, whatever you do not mention the old wives' tale about wrapping up a baby blanket and putting it under the tree, because I think I might throw my turkey at you.
Yeah, things people have said to us that we wish they hadn't. It's a long book in my world.
Oh, I bet.
I hope that people have taken some bits and pieces from this that might be able to put in their little backpack and help them.
I think it's been filled with practical advice, and I actually think that that's one of the best things that we can give people. So please, if you're listening and you've taken something from this, please comment and please share with someone who you think might be going through something similar. And I'm hoping that also, even though this is specifically about Christmas, these are kind of tools that you can take into your new year as well as you continue whatever journey you're on. Thank you so much for today. I, first and foremost, hope you have a very Merry Christmas, and I hope you can enjoy Manhattans in your dad's memory and just a lovely Grinchy or non-Grinchy time, whatever you need it to be.
Yeah, like mid-Grinch.
Mid-Grinch is fine.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And I will put in the notes below links to your Instagram, links to your website, And I hope that people will follow along, because there is, at all times of year, such good advice on there and really, really valuable tips. Yeah. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Helen. And Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas, everyone.